Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Friday to you all, TGIF. Let me remind you that we will be doing a live stream today at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, so hope to see you all there. Good morning ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in for this video. We have a lot of news to cover. I have, I think, like 11 or 12 articles to go over with you, but I'm only going to skim through them, and I'm going to leave the link to every one of these articles on a pinned comment so that you can revisit them if you'd like. So do you remember here several months ago? I'm sure that there were many other YouTubers talking about it, but I was talking about it as well, telling you all why it is that the price of beef was kind of like settling. And the reasoning behind it is because in the last several months, even close to a year, ranchers and farmers, they were having a lot of high input costs, meaning that it cost so much for them to maintain their herd of cattle that they had to bring them to market and have them called and put on the supermarket shelves. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, that is starting to catch up with us. And a lot of us have said that going into next year, you're going to see much higher prices for meat in general. And in this case, we're talking about beef. Here it says that the dwindling U.S. cattle herd implies that supermarket beef prices may rise even more. Now, I did a small calculation as far as how many cattle were being put into the market around this time last year and how many there are this year. And we'll get to those numbers here in a minute. And it's about roughly 10% less. But that doesn't mean that prices are only going to go up by 10%. Remember that the reason that there's less cattle in the market is because of the input costs. And those costs are much higher today than they were a year, 2 years ago. Even though we have a dwindling supply of cattle, the costs are still higher than they were when the ranchers were bringing those cattle to market because they couldn't afford it. So that means that the bottom line is that you will be paying more at the supermarket as soon as this supply starts to hit the supermarket shelves, whereas this shortage of supply starts to hit the supermarket shelves. Another thing that we have to take into consideration is that we're still exporting cattle, which also puts a strain on the prices that we pay here in the United States where they are raised. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is releasing a report today on Friday that will show that cattle are being brought to feedlots at the slowest rate in a decade. Cattle generally spend several months at feedlots while they grow and gain body fat and muscle before being transported. More input costs. Fewer cattle at feedlots only imply dwindling beef supplies and high prices at the supermarket. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to stock up on your beef. The prices, comparatively to when it was like the middle of this health crisis, are lower, but they are going to go much higher. Ask yourselves, are you going to be able to afford to buy that beef or even that chicken? I don't think this is just beef. It's going to be all meats. Bloomberg's average estimate for cattle placed into feedlots in October is about 2.17 million, a decline from 2.5 million, which is just shy of 10% in early 2019, right before the health crisis hit, and the lowest since 2012. With the war that we have going on with fossil fuels, they want to take fossil fuels away from us. A lot of the things that cattle need in order to eat, to grow, so that they can then be culled or processed and put into the market, have a lot or depend a lot on the price of fuels. They continue to say this is a reversal from recent months when ranchers faced with dwindling supplies and sharply higher prices for hay moved more animals off the ranch, helping to keep the meat supplies relatively plentiful. Fewer animals moving closer to the slaughterhouse would signal herds are shrinking, which will likely mean higher meat prices down the road. Exactly what you just talked about. There's going to be less cattle. See, this is what we look at. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we look at. A lot of times when I put a video out, you'll get a comment here or there saying, well, it hasn't happened and it's already been a week. Well, that's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. What good would it do you to get information that's that old, that tells you, okay, listen, if you don't stock up right now, tomorrow the prices are going to be double what you're paying now? That really wouldn't do many people that good. But this is something that we can look ahead. What are the probabilities, in your opinion? Go do your own research. what are the probabilities that the price of beef will go up if there's less beef supply in the market, and if the input cost to bring that beef to the market is even higher than it was before? In my opinion, the probability is very high. So stock up on your beef now. I would say stock up on all your meats now. I think this is a good time for me to execute that plan that I had of getting a couple 100 pounds of lean beef so that I can put my freeze dryer to work. This shows me that we are turning into a third world nation, ladies and gentlemen. Power blackouts risks loom for a quarter of all Americans. 1/4 of all Americans will risk having blackouts this heating season or this winter. The U.S. heating season has officially begun, and new warnings show that 1/4 of all Americans could experience energy emergencies this winter if temperatures fall below average due to tight fossil fuel supplies. Get ready. We've all known that winter's coming. Are you ready for it? Do you have what you need? If you don't, do what it is that you need to do in order to meet that need. All right, that way you don't have to go cold this winter. I hope that by now you would have a good supply of sustenance, i.e. foods, at 6-month-ago prices. That way, during the winter, if you face a month or two where your heating bills are just very high, that you can afford to supplement the money that you would have spent on your food on your heating bills. But in addition to that, I would hope that by now you have at least 1 or 2 backups to your heating system in your house. At the very minimum, something that will heat a small room where the rest of the house can get cold and you and your family can have, I would say, like a hot room that you can go to and stay warm. Just in case, make sure you have a generator. I always recommend that you have a gasoline generator first before a solar generator, because a gasoline generator gives you the ability to start it whenever you want, as long as you have gasoline or whatever fuel your generator uses. All right, it gives you the ability to start it whenever you want, and it's up to you on how much fuel you want to store. So make sure that you have a generator. That way, if something like this happens to you, you don't have to be a statistic. And make sure, most importantly, that if you do have a generator or purchase a generator, please read the owner's manual. The owner's manual is actually pretty handy. Whenever I get something new, like a generator or whatever it may be, I skim through the owner's manual and I read all of the points that I feel that I need to read in order to operate that piece of machinery safely. Because they write it, because they built it, so they know. For the most part, I would say. But don't be one of those people that thinks that running your generator in your garage is safe when in fact it's not. It's actually less safe than running it in your house. And the reason for that is this, is because if you were running it in your house, the fumes would get you to think, hey, what's going on here? I got to get this thing out of here, you know? But when you're running it in your garage, that CO2, it gets through your ventilation system and it quietly dims your lights, if you understand what I mean. So prep up for these cold days, for this cold season that's coming. If you are able to have multiple power supplies and also have multiple ways of being able to heat your home and or just a room in your home. Let's take a look at how many days of diesel we have in our inventory and see how we're doing. So we are revisiting the same page that we visited last time when I talked about this, and I just thought that we would touch on this for a little bit. U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, is where I go, and this one was updated, I believe, about a week ago, so it's not that old. But I bring it all the way down here where it says days of supply, number of days of crude oil. You can see that our crude oil went down a little bit. Our gasoline is about the same that it was last week, pretty much about the same average. Our jet fuel, we're looking at, it went down a little bit. It went down almost 1 day of supply. Distillate fuel oil, which is like your heating oil, your diesel and stuff like that, we went up a little bit. We are at 26.6 days. So if you go back here where it says like 25.9, this is when you started seeing all of those videos come out saying, hey, we only have 25 days of diesel fuel left. And I came out with a video similar to that. However, I explained what I'm going to explain now on that previous video, is that that's how many days we have in our reserves. So for example, if all of the distilleries or refineries, I always say distilleries, it's really refineries because they're not making moonshine. If all of the refineries were to stop making distillates right now, we would have 25.9 days back here, right? And that's if they all stopped right now. That's how much we would have left. That's how much we have in storage. Consider this like the fuel oil or the diesel pantry, right? You know, your pantry, you have several months of food. If food stopped right now and you couldn't get any more right now, you have what you have. Same thing here. Right now, if the refinery stopped and we couldn't get any more diesel or heating oil right now, this is how many days we have left. All right. And propane is actually doing halfway decent. It's back to the 90-day. So that's not terrible. However, you know, I think that the price of propane is extremely high, at least in the area that we live. So hopefully you stocked up on propane a while back. But as far as when we compare this to the past month and a half, it's averaging about between 25 and 26 days. So are we in great shape? Absolutely not. Years and years ago, we had an average of 100 plus days on the books. Now we are 1/4 of what we used to average years ago. However, I don't think that you need to panic over this. When would I panic? Well, I wouldn't really panic, but when would I take notice and started taking action? If I saw that something happened where we had to stop, you know, where we had to stop producing diesel or heating oils. If for some reason they just had to stop all of a sudden, I'd be like, oh, wait a minute. It's time to get a 55-gallon drum or a couple 55-gallon drums or have my fuel tanks refilled, get more. I start thinking about that. But the time to panic, I believe it's not now. It's keeping pretty steady at this 25, 26 days. Well, ladies and gentlemen, great news. When you can no longer afford that meat, then maybe you can just eat some lab-grown meat, because the FDA just gave safety clearance to lab-grown meat made from chicken cell technology. Now, doesn't that sound pretty tasty? It's where we're headed. It's where this is part of the big plan. All right, in my opinion, this is part of the big plan where you're going to have a digital wallet, a CBDC, a Fed coin, whatever they want to call it. It's going to be a digital wallet, right? And then you're going to have an ESG score, which pretty much gives you a carbon credit. You're going to get so many carbon credits on your digital wallet, and then you're going to have a choice. You can either burn up half of your carbon credits on real chicken or real beef, or you can burn up 1/10 of your carbon credits on lab-grown meats. And guess who's going to be buying the lab-grown meats? Those people that are in the lower socioeconomic status here in this country and other countries, of course, as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it's going to be about. The poorer people are going to end up using their credits on lab-grown meat, and the people that have all the money in the world that they could ever need for the rest of their lives, they're going to be buying carbon credits from the poorer people who need credits just to survive. This is the dystopian future that we are facing. Biden admin suggests that Saudi Crown Prince be granted immunity in the killing of this reporter, who I believe is an American citizen. I believe you've all heard the stories that this happened here, I think a couple of years ago or so. Let me see if it says here. No, I'm not going to go through this article, but I find this very, very interesting that now they're giving immunity to the Crown Prince for the killing of this person when there are direct ties to that kingdom, right? That this person was dispatched in a gruesome manner. But why is that? Maybe it's because we need them to ramp up oil production, because we ourselves have sabotaged our oil industry here. Why? I don't understand. I will never understand, except that it's actual sabotage, right, from within. I will never understand why a country would stop its own production of energy just to outsource it to someone else, when that entails having less security within your own nation. Just think about that. Without energy, we have nothing. All right, think about that. Without energy, we have nothing. All right, everything in life is energy. So why would a country stop its own energy production to outsource that to a different nation that's not even very friendly with our country at that? The rail strike is not over. I mentioned this here a while back, maybe a week or two ago, that there were still one or two unions that were holding out. And here it says a potential rail strike could be the catalyst that brings the U.S. economy into a full-on recession. The American Chemistry Council warned on Wednesday in an economic analysis of the impacts of its industries and other. All right, if a strike lasts 1 month, it would likely put a major chill on several leading economic indicators through the first half of 2023. I wish I could come here one day and give you nothing but really, really great news. Well, I have great news, actually. Take a look at the video that I released last night. It was pretty awesome that we were able to pull off what we did with bringing that nice load. Boy, I was so happy. We were able to bring 100 turkeys and 100 dinners to the food bank. So there's going to be 100 families here where I live, in the area where I live. You always have to make sure that you take care of your local areas, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it's nice to be able to give to other states and other counties when they are in duress, when they are in times of great need, like when the hurricane, or when the freeze happened in Texas last year, a couple years ago. When the freeze happened in Texas, we came together, the prepper community and YouTube came together, and we were able, through this channel and a couple of other channels that sent their people this way to donate, we were able to give like almost $10,000 to food banks in Texas during that big freeze that they had. Well, this time around, we were able to collect 100 turkeys and the equivalent of 100 sides for those 100 turkeys, so that people that can't afford to have a turkey dinner on Thanksgiving can get one. So I want to thank you. I know that's not what this video is about, but I want to thank you for all of your support, because that's what makes it happen. And if you haven't checked out that video, check it out, because it was a lot of fun to make. Now, I wanted to cover this here shortly, and it's just something so that I can document this and maybe come back and look at it, a year from now. You all know by now this FTX fiasco that occurred here in the last couple of weeks or so, where this crypto exchange was pretty much a huge Ponzi scheme. And by the way, it was a centralized crypto exchange, meaning that somebody was in charge of it. All right, it was not decentralized. But anyways, I digress. Well, so this crypto exchange went bankrupt. A whole bunch of people lost money. The CEO was on the run and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's an investigation. Well, during the very initial parts of this happening, it was discovered that funds that were being sent to the big U, that big U that's having a fight right now with a big R, that funds that were being sent to them from this country here, from taxpayer dollars, in the amount of billions and tens of billions of dollars, that country was taking billions of those dollars that we, the American taxpayers, were sending them and putting it into this FTX. And then it just turns out that the FTX CEO, was actually doing a lot of donations to political parties, right? And then I'll let you look into it more than that. But in my opinion, this is not going to be investigated as far as the donations that were being given to political parties, because one political party got like, I don't know, about 100 times more in donations than the other one did. And it just happens that those donations that were being made by the CEO, had in part money that was sent to the big U from us, the American taxpayers. So, this will never change. We are, in my opinion, a third world country now. We are a banana republic. We've been a banana republic for a very long time. But in my opinion, we have meat, prices of food is just escalating like crazy, right? And we just talked about beef, how it's going to go up in price next year. We have a corrupt political system, ladies and gentlemen. We have a system that if they don't like what you say, they have a whole bunch of tools to be able to come and get you and shut you up. For example, if somebody that's higher up gets a sense of what I say and they don't like it, they can just shut me up. What would I do? What would I do if I had a federal organization come here and tell me, you either shut up or we're going to ruin your lives and your family's lives? What would you do? We live in a banana republic, and we have now a third world country. When you look at our infrastructure, when you look at all of the things that are put at the feet of the American people that we just cannot control. We cannot get these people out of office because the political system is so corrupt. Just like Thomas Jefferson said, and this will play out again one day. unfortunately, but it will, because it's history. Right? The tree of liberty must be watered every now and then with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And of course, that will happen again because it's history, ladies and gentlemen. G20 pushes the super shot passports for all future international travel. This is going to start at the international level. So if they pass this, or however this works, all right, if all of these other countries submit to this, I was just thinking the other day, man, you know what? I probably should get our passports, renewed, because my passport, it's expired probably more than 10 years ago, right? So I don't ever plan on going anywhere. But I was like, man, I probably ought to go get my passport renewed. And my wife's and my daughter's and Victor's, their passports are all up to date. I was like, I should probably get mine renewed. But now what for? What for, right? If you don't decide to do what they want you to do with your body, then you're not going to be able to travel. So it'll start in the international, and then eventually it may start from state to state, and then eventually when they push that CBDC upon the public and the public accepts it, and we have an ESG and a social credit score and a carbon rationing credit system, they'll go ahead and push this into it as well. All right, it'll all come down to the personal level. It all starts up there, just like ESG. Remember ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Right? ESG is starting out with who? With big corporations, big banks, and now governments are actually starting to get in and enforcing things with ESG. And eventually it'll be brought down, like I said, to the CBDC, where it's going to act as your social credit score. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, because the only way that we can beat this is two ways. The first way is going to be by having everything that we need, by being as best prepared as we possibly can be in order to say no, in order to be able to exercise, like Bear from Bear Independence says, exercise your no muscle. That's how we can exercise our no muscle, is when we have everything that we need in order to survive for an extended period of time. That way, when they come with their shenanigans, we can say no, no thank you. Right? And so it's just a form of resistance, really. Right? And the other way that we can beat this eventually, when the time comes, it will be through attrition. It will be to survive to live another day. And just think about what that means, attrition. Right? That's how the Vietnamese won the Vietnam War. Now this should scare people. It really should, because millions upon millions upon millions of people during the 2008 great financial recession, I think it was, or crash, whatever it was called, lost everything. Millions of Americans lost everything, lost their homes, lost their savings, lost everything. And here it says, U.S. consumers are doing exactly what they did just prior to the crash of 2008. We never seem to learn from our mistakes, and isn't that just the truth? It's just part of human nature. Just before the financial markets crashed and the economy plunged into a horrifying recession in 2008, U.S. consumers went on a debt binge of epic proportions, and they're doing the same thing right now. People are living off their credit cards. I'm sure that many of those people is because they don't have a choice, right? But the savings rate in the U.S. is the lowest it's been in I don't know how many years. It's at like 3.7%, something like that, which is very, very low. People are living off their credit cards. Savings are lower than it's been in a very long time. People are losing jobs left and right, and that's only started. Losing jobs, it's only started. Okay, it's going to get even worse. They're going to start losing their homes. They're going to start losing their cars. They're already losing their cars to repossessions. There's a record amount of repossessions going on. So get ready now, right? Because, it's just a crisis, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a crisis. And it will have an end. But will you be able to thrive after this crisis is over, or just barely make it? So prepare now. That way you can thrive. Instead of being a follower, when this is over, you can in turn be a leader. And if this doesn't have ESG written all over it, well, I don't know what does. Here, the Detroit Free Press has an article that says, University of Michigan to invest $300 million in socially responsible companies. Why are in socially responsible companies? I mean, what does a company do when you bring it down to the bare bones? What does a company do? It provides a service or a product, right? That's what a company does. Provides a service or a product. What does that have to do with ESG? Environmental, social, and governance. Well, in my opinion, the ESG part, the conscience part of the ESG, environmental, social, and governance, that should be up to the free market. So if you don't like that these solar panels that we're buying, which most of them are made in China, and I understand that. But if you don't like that they're being made by, some people say, I'm not saying this, all right, because I am on the internet, but some people say that they are made by slave labor, right? But then again, I'm on the internet, I'm sure you understand. If you don't like that, then don't buy them, right? That is the free market telling the company, hey, we don't want your product because of this or this or that. But as companies start to embrace this ESG, they're going to make decisions not based on output, not based on profits, not based on the bottom line, but based on what they are being told to do by an entity that was never elected by the United States of America, right? Never elected by the UN. That is who is dictating what this ESG is. So the more that you see this, the more that you see that we are being taken over by an entity that is outside of our borders, that was never elected to powers. In my opinion, these people that embrace this ESG and take it wholeheartedly, in my opinion, they are being treasonous to our nation and to our people. And that's just my opinion, of course. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you've heard about this, that central banks are starting a 12-week digital dollar pilot. This will never happen, I say. Remember those days a few years back? I've been talking about this for like 3 or 4 years now. This will never happen. They will never get rid of cash. Well, guess what? A pilot program means what? What's the next thing after a pilot program? Well, I don't know. We'll take a look at China. So that's what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, there's a lot of people that say, we will resist. We will not do this. We will resist. But when you think that we live in a democracy, which is really a republic, you see, our country is a republic, which means that the job of the government, one of the jobs, in my opinion, the most important job, is to protect your rights as stated in the Bill of Rights in the Constitution of the United States. That is their main job. But in a democracy, we push that aside and allow rule by a mob. Meaning that if 51% or more vote this way, then yes, you can do this to the other 49%, whether they like it or not. Well, in a time and day when we have Americans at the 65, 70 or more percent of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, who can't even pay $400 or $500 emergency bill. They can't even get a flat tire, or they're out on the streets. When we have 26 million people who are asking the government to forgive their student loans. When we have Americans that are on the brink of being homeless. Do you think that they're not going to accept a CBDC when the next crisis is rolled out and they are in even more destitute than they are now? You think they're not going to accept it? Of course they're going to accept it. And then what's going to happen when everything, all of the stores, supermarkets, everything that we rely on to get things on an everyday basis only takes CBDCs? Are you not going to accept it? Do you have enough gasoline stored up to last you the next, I believe, 10 years or so before this system switches over, hopefully to a better system? Because there's going to be a time between the time that they actually try to completely enslave us to the time that we actually break away from that enslavement. It is going to take us as humanity time to figure out, hey, this is not working. This is not what I signed up for. I'm not talking about you, the person that's awake, but I'm talking about the regular person on the street who's just trying to survive, who has no idea how the world works. So do you have enough gas? So when you sit there and say, I will never use that, I will never accept it. I remember one day when the internet first started and they started allowing people to pay their bills online, I myself said, I will never do that. Ever, ever, ever. I will always write a check or pay cash. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just the way of the world. Eventually, they make it so difficult on you that you have to do it this way. Now, I know there's probably some people out there that still write checks, that still only work in cash, that maybe just have a savings account and that's it. But that is the minority. The majority will take this because eventually they won't have a choice. So get ready for this. How do you get ready for this? Stock up as much as possible. It really is a way to get ready for this. Because if they decide to shut off your card or your CBDC when you go buy that 4th pound of chicken for the month, at least you have some in the background, and at least you can go ahead and trade some of your Fed coins for some carbon credits from someone else that can't afford the meat anyways. It's going to be the way that it goes. But humanity will eventually wake up to that, and there will be a paradigm shift into something that I hope is better. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video didn't take very long. I don't even know how long I've been on here. I've just been yapping away. But I want to say thank you very much for joining in today. I hope to see you all this afternoon during our Friday live stream. All right, let's have a good time today. And let's just do a little back and forth and just do a little fellowship during our live stream. Hope to see you there. Again, it's at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you very much for all of your support, ladies and gentlemen. I truly do appreciate you. Thank you so much for allowing me to do some of the things that I can do. Go check out that video from the food bank haul yesterday. It was awesome. I did a little bit of clickbait, and that's come to be somewhat of a tradition. For those of you that have been here since the beginning, think back to all of the other food bank videos that I've done. I think the last couple that we've done, I've done a little bit of clickbait to get people to click on it, and then they see that we're doing a food haul. Like yesterday video, I said something like, this is the biggest food haul that I've ever done because of this or that, and then as soon as you click on the video, I'm telling you, hey, I'm not pressure canning 100 turkeys. We're bringing it to the food bank. So anyways, that was a lot of fun to do. A pretty rough week this week so far, but things are getting better, feeling a little bit better. So again, I'll stop talking and hope to see you all this afternoon. God bless you all, and thank you very much again for all of your support.